Good morning. Today I'm going to do something different. I'm presenting a documentary about this newspaper article from, as you can see, it's from the Poughkeepsie Eagle News from May 4th, 1935. And it's just basically on May the 3rd, 1935, there was a major fire in the city of Poughkeepsie, and it killed 5 people. Sadly, 4 of them were family members, and what I want to do is present it's kind of a memorial for the family, because not only were the 4 people of my family killed, but there was 5 other children involved, and 4 of them were in school, and well, I'll get into the whole story as I go along. But to begin, I'd like to present a small caveat emptor. Being this was 85 years ago, most of the family members have now departed. As a matter of fact, the youngest child just died here in August of 2020, so all the major participants in this item have now left this world, and I'm hoping that if there's any other family members involved, or if they would contact me if they have an issue with this video, please let me know, and we can talk about it. But I'm going to present this as a very solemn and very respectful video. So, well, let me get started. I want to first discuss some history of Poughkeepsie and some genealogy to explain how I was related to these people. So we're going to go ahead and move from this screen over to here. Now, this is my great-grandmother. Her name was Cora Etta Du Bois Teeter. As you can see, her last name is spelt with an O, Teator, and my name is spelt with a Teater. But she was born in May of 1865, and she had 2 sisters. When I was researching my family history, I went out to the cemetery where she's buried. As you can see on this screen, it says LaGrange Rural, but at the time it was known as Manchester Cemetery, and for some reason they changed the name of the cemetery as time went by. And what I did was I went out, and of course I had to hunt through the cemetery to find her stone, and I finally located it, and hopefully you can see that was her tiny stone. I was hoping to find my great-grandfather, but he was not buried with her, apparently. As you can tell, that's a picture of my great-grandmother that my cousin had, and interesting enough, it looks like, I don't know if you've seen divorce pictures, but it looks like she was torn off from the picture with my great-grandfather, and I believe from looking at the picture, he was in that picture because, well, there's part of his ear, and he has the Teeter ears. But heading on, what I'll do is I'm going to post links for all the websites I visit here, and hopefully you can go out and you can go look at them and see them a little better. So we're going to start by coming down here, and her sister was Anna Du Bois Decker, and she's buried in the same cemetery as my great-grandmother. She would have been my great-grandaunt, I think. I don't know. I'd have to look on my family tree, and we will get to my family tree with time. And she had a daughter by the name of Mary Ann Decker Sifes. I believe it's Mary Ann. I don't know. I say her right now. We just have her as Mary A. Decker. But this is the only picture I have of the Sifes family. That was, I guess she would be my cousin, since my great-grandmother and her great-grandmother were both sisters. And when I went out to the cemetery, I didn't know she was related at the time. I found this headstone next to my great-grandmother's. Hang on, it'll take a few seconds to load here. And the interesting thing I found about this headstone was all the death dates on the stone were all 1935, which I found rather interesting because, you know, I'm thinking car accident or something. So I decided, well, let me go research it a little bit because, you know, I figured, you know, it had to be something where all 4 members of the same family died on the same date. And in my research, that's when I found the newspaper articles about the fire, and I also discovered that she was related to me. And I thought that was rather, this is my ancestry family tree, and like I said, on my research, I found out that she was my, let's see, what my first cousin 2 times removed. Okay, that makes a little sense. Now, these are all the children that were involved with the fire, and as you can see, they've all departed. The last one here was George Edward, Edward Irving Sifes died in, like I said, August 2020. So anyway, we're up to history now of Poughkeepsie. In 1935, Poughkeepsie was a rather interesting place. They actually had trolleys in Poughkeepsie up until 1935, sort of like San Francisco. As you can see on the street there, those are trolley tracks, and they hadn't gotten around to removing the trolley tracks. As a matter of fact, I think if you go to Poughkeepsie today, they've managed to pave over the street, but in 1974, when I first got my driver's license, shows you how old I am, they were still running over I was still running over those trolley tracks. They never removed them, they just paved over the darn thing. So they're probably still there, you know, unless they finally decided to tear up the streets or remove them at some point. But according to this article, as you can see, this is the same newspaper article I showed you for the opening here. The buildings in Poughkeepsie were pretty much made of wood, as you can, I don't know if you can see that very well, but as I said, I'm going to post links so you can go look at these yourself. And because they were wood, they pretty much were a fire hazard at the time. That was the front of 411 Main Street in Poughkeepsie where the fire took place, and my family, I believe, lived on the 2nd floor. I have to read the article again to kind of get a better idea of what was involved. But 4 of my family members died, and then there was another child who was, I guess, playing with some of them, and she also died. I'll be showing her as we go along here and talk about the fire. As apparently 3 kids Well, let me start the day. May 3rd, 1935. There was 7 children and 2 adults living in the apartment. The 4 oldest children went to school that day, and the youngest, the youngest boy went out back, and apparently him and a couple of friends were, for fun, were setting gasoline on fire. According to the article, I don't know, in one part of the article I read it was oil that had been drained from a car. And they set the fire close to the wooden house in the back. And normally, I guess it didn't catch the house on fire because apparently they had done this a number of times. And of course, the last time is the one that's important because that's the time where it actually caught the house on fire. Now, as you can see there, this is a picture of the front of the house that's on fire, and because it's black and white, you can't see it very well, but that's all the smoke coming from the fire, and of course the firemen out there trying to put it out. Let's see, maybe this picture's a little better. Different computers have different now that car that's sitting in the back there, that belonged to the father of the children who died in the fire. So basically that's well, let me introduce the family members, the people in this story. The father was George Edward Sipes. His wife was Mary A. Decker Sipes. And the two youngest children were Rose and Joan Sipes. Let me go back here. See, Joan Ida Sipes. And the other one was Rose Marie Sipes. They both died in the fire with the parents. The other child that died in the fire was this young lady. She was born in 1927, and then she died in 1935, of course. And she was approximately 78 years old during the fire. And I will post a link for her page if you want to. If you'd like to place flowers on my family members, that would be on these people who died in this fire. That would probably be a nice thing. But it's very sad that, you know, the reason why it's sad is I'll explain in a moment. The children who had gone to school, of course, had no idea what happened. They actually picked the kids up from school afterwards, and, you know, they were wondering where their parents were, and of course their parents they were all wondering where the 2 youngest kids were. Here we go. Now, this is a description of what happened, and I'll let that speak for itself. Sipes' funeral to be private. Burial will be in Manchester, which, like I said, now is LaGrange Rural Cemetery. Mr. and Mrs. G. Edward Sipes and their 2 daughters, Rosemarie and Joan Ida, who were burned to death in the fire at 411 Main Street yesterday, will be buried in 2 graves in Manchester Cemetery tomorrow afternoon. The funeral, however, will be private. Last rites will be conducted over their charred bodies at the undertaking room of Phillips A. Hughes, 12 South Hamilton Street in Poughkeepsie. The parents will be buried in separate graves, and the child will be placed on top of each. Details of the services had not been arranged last night. Mr. Sipes was 35, was a native of the city, son of George Edward Sipes and the late Ava Fetter Sipes. He attended schools in Poughkeepsie, and for the last 4 years had been employed by Terra. Yesterday he was working on a project for the, for parking places and the municipal golf course on College Hill, which is apparently, I believe, is still there. They still do golfing on College Hill in Poughkeepsie. He is survived by 4 sisters: Mrs. Laura Steiter of 18 Place, Mrs. Irene Burlingham of 330 Mansion Street. Sometimes hard to read these articles. Mrs. Grace Reeves of 9 Park Place, and Mrs. Luella Ronk of 411 Main Street. I'm assuming she wasn't home when the fire happened if she lived in the same place. He attended St. Mary's Church. Mrs. Sipes, 29, was born in the town of Poughkeepsie, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Irving Decker, my great-grandmother's sister, of 374 Mill Street. She attended schools in the town of LaGrange and lived much of her life in the city. She was also a communicant of St. Mary's Church. She is survived by 2 brothers, Irving and Fred Decker of this city, 3 sisters, Mrs. Laura Gallen of Hyde Park, Mrs. John Ronk of Poughkeepsie, and Mrs. Harvey Edmonds of 419 Main Street, and an aunt, Mrs. Herbert Chase of Galloway, Saratoga County. It tells about the 5 children who survived. George, Joseph, Francis, Fred, Joyce, and Irving, who was 5 years old at the time. I want to talk about Irving for a few minutes because he's sadly, Irving went out back to play with 2 friends. Let me see if I can find this part of the article. Well, let me just talk about it. Basically what happened was he went outside, and those were the 3 friends who decided, 3 children who decided to start the fire. And as I said, they started it too close to the house, and because the house was wood, it burnt up and killed his parents and his 2 sisters. I would imagine that having to live with that his whole life was probably pretty hard. I tried to talk to him at one time. I believe it's his daughter, tried to contacted me at some point and was talking to me about how we were related and everything, because we were talking about going out and cleaning off the Sipes headstone out at LaGrange Rural. It had gotten pretty dirty over the years, and we were trying to figure out how to get some of the dirt off of the stone. She said he never would really talk about it. Apparently it had affected him very much, and since the other 4 children, I guess all 5 children had been put up for adoption after the parents were killed, and it was pretty rough. I guess the one daughter ended up in going to a private school somewhere, and it must have been hard. I can't imagine having to live with the idea that I killed my parents in a fire. He, like I said, he was the last survivor of this incident. Pretty much all of the male children, when they grew up, actually became firemen. I would imagine the fact that there was quite a bit of controversy. Let me tell you about something about this fire. It was, like I said, it was classified as the worst fire in the city of Poughkeepsie up until 1935, just because of the damage to the buildings. Apparently 3 buildings were damaged in this fire, and of course 5 lives were lost. And they said that people went to the fire station, which was apparently right around the corner from where the fire happened, and it took the firemen quite a bit of time to get to the fire. As a matter of fact, there was some talk that possibly if they had moved a little faster, that the people might not have died in the fire. People were saying that when the firemen got there, the people inside were still alive and crying for help. But there's some controversy about that, so you know, I'm not going to I can't argue with it, because like I said, this was 85 years ago, and you know, it's kind of hard to, it's in the articles when if you decide to go in and read more of the articles. And the interesting part, when I researched this thing, I found that this article had been reprinted almost all across America in every state. So it was a fairly big deal for 1935 that this situation happened. Like I said, I just find the facts fascinating. The fire was quite amazing, and you know, the damage. It was in the paper for about a year after the fire. That's how significant it was. So go in, read the articles. You know, I'm sure there's quite a bit of interesting material there. I just kind of skimmed over, you know, some of the highlights. Now, I'm going to show one last picture because I thought it was rather interesting. After the fire, they of course came in and cleaned up the debris. The address that on this place, as they said, was 411 Main Street. Now, I went to Google Maps and I looked, and this is 411 Main Street. This picture was probably taken around 2012. As you can see, there is 411, and this is 411 Main Street. Now, when you go to the top, there's a stone up at the top. I don't know if you can read that, but that stone says 1935. They wasted absolutely no time rebuilding something in the place on 411 Main Street where the fire took place. This building was put up pretty much right after the fire. I mean, they wasted no time whatsoever. I don't know what was there in 1935. I mean, this building was apparently there, but what store was there when the building was first put up? The Congress that you're looking at there was put up, oh, I would say in the early 70s. And I was a taxi driver in Poughkeepsie, and I'm going to tell you a little side story here. I drove taxi, and I used to deliver people to this bar, and it was a bar. I went in there once or twice just to check it out. But the thing was, it was considered the gay bar in Poughkeepsie, and if there was any ghost from the people who died in this fire, I hope they haunted this place like crazy. I never heard any stories about anybody haunting the place. If anybody knows any stories about that, I would be interested. I just find it kind of sad that that's what ended up on my family's grave. So that was just a little end story there, and pretty much I guess that's the end of my presentation. I kind of hope you like this documentary. I wanted to give it a try, see how it would work out. If you have any comments or any suggestions, or if you have any pictures of my family, like I said, the only picture I have of my relatives is the one of my Mary Decker Sipes, and I kind of would like pictures of the rest of the family. I never actually met any of them. That was the interesting part. As I said, they were firemen in Poughkeepsie, so you would have thought at some point I might have run into them, but I don't remember having done so. I just had a friend of mine on Facebook tell me that we went to school with some of the great grandchildren of the family. So, of course, at that time I didn't know they were family. Doing my genealogy, I have 15,000 people on my family tree now, and it turns out a lot of people I went to school with I was actually related to and had no clue. But if you like this video, doing my genealogy, I have learned many things about my family, and I have a lot of interesting stories. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it, please subscribe if you want to, please, comment, say, hey, this was great. If you got more weird stories of your family history, or, you'd like to share, just let me know. I would, I'm definitely would be interested in doing more family history, and, sharing some of the strange stuff my family was into. So thank you for watching, and please, like I said, just let me know what you think.